Paru Itagaki describes Haru as being true to herself and honest to a fault. And I think no lies were told there. Because when we take a look at her introduction as a character, she was bullied, outcasted, promiscuous, and extremely caring. She was the only one in the gardening club taking care of all those plants, and she was doing it happily, and she didn't see it as work, and she didn't resent it at all. It was really in her character to love gardening. That made a lot of sense for her character actually. Her obscurity made her extremely relatable, and thus extremely nurturing. She was aware of the flaws within herself, and extremely inviting of them. That's probably why she loved nature and gardening so much. Nature is beautiful because it is inherently flawed. Nothing is fair, and everything is assigned a role within the cast of a food chain, and climbing and surviving in this chain is what drives nature's predictable design. Haru wasn't a saint, and she didn't expect anyone else to be. And that's what made her beautiful as a character, and that's why I loved her so much. She was the first person we see in the series with the most realistic view of the world around her, and she also showed up in the correct moments in the series to brighten up the mood. And it's really amazing how self-aware she was at her very young age. And the setting plays a huge role because this is a high school and this is a come-of-age story. Come-of-age stories are always interesting to watch and are always enjoyed, no matter what age you are. And it's because we are all very aware of how this time period in our lives, this very, very short time period in our life, the coming-of-age story is a story of adolescence to early adulthood. But the person you are deep down inside is shaped by the time you're 16. At this point, your character is solidified, and the only thing you can do is expand on this character. With Beastars being a coming-of-age tale with a twist though, with carnivores and herbivores coexisting in society, but also trying to be civilized in society, where your success and even your existence is based on how well you're able to suppress these very animal instincts. Beastars is a geniusly crafted world, pulling at the shortcomings of our own and creating a story based on predator and prey, love and lust, innocence and taint. And Haru is the best depiction of how innocence plays in the story and probably in our own world. Innocence automatically becomes a point of focus in any story with a young cast or a school setting, because it is one of the most relatable concepts in our lives. Everyone is going to be met with the decision to taint themselves, whether it be sex, drugs, money, power, or anything of the sorts. Innocence is the basis of every coming-of-age story, and we all have or will have our own coming-of-age story. The most intriguing part about coming-of-age stories is the exchange of innocence throughout the main 3 acts: the journey, the decision, and the result. And as a human, we pay close attention specifically to the result because we subconsciously compare our result to others. Did they become a social butterfly that is set up for success? The class clown that learned to roll with the punches early? A loner with too many insecurities to count? A seemingly normal person with a void that will have to be filled? A vagabond that lives in the moment with no real direction? A saint? An asshole? A martyr? A hypocrite? A big shot? A loser? A crook? An outcast? A reject? A mogul? A dreamer? A cynic? Or did they become just like you, so very eerily similar to you? But when we relate this back to Haru, things get interesting because of how unconventional her character is. She flips this whole come-of-age concept on its head because she herself does not value innocence, which makes her journey way more intriguing than the result, because the result is trivial when the retention of purity is no longer a point of concern. And with Haru, we establish this dismissal of innocence early, and with that the result. And we naturally hone in on how a character free from the bonds of innocence lives their life. Because we all know deep down inside, this is going to be a wild ride on her journey to the wild side. Her readiness to sleep with Legosi was the perfect introduction to her character. In the eyes of her society, nothing is more defiling than for a snow hare to be in bed with a carnivore. A grey wolf to be exact. Like, the crazy thing about this whole situation is, this is not blacked, this is woofed. Haru likes sex because she is finally seen as an equal. She is one of the most fragile, coddled, and patronized species, and that really bothers her to her core. She feels that she'll never be truly respected among her peers, because no matter what, she is that small, cute snow hare that needs to be protected and coddled. She attracted broken people because she was broken herself, and she accepted the flaws in herself. She used sex to fill a void of insecurity, and she wanted to feel as an equal and finally feel respected. But this was at the expense of the respect of her peers. Her character is paradoxical in how we dictate feminine value. She traded her chastity for self-respect, when usually you retain chastity for respect, buying into lust in order to acquire more self-love. The reason I went to all that is because I want to compare the relationships between Haru and Lewis, and also the relationship between Haru and Legosi. On the surface level, if you take a look at Haru and Lewis's relationship, you will think it's just a simple tale of love and lust. But I think it was much more than that. And if you take a look at Lewis's character and what he was missing throughout his life, you will see that there's one main thing that he was missing, and that was maternal affection, maternal love. And Haru, being as nurturing as she is, and also as accepting as she is, this was the perfect person to fill this void within Lewis. Lewis was the result of the wickedness in a world where carnivores and herbivores have to coexist. He is the result of the suppression of a carnivore's natural instinct to really need meat. Pause. But yeah, you feel me? To need to eat meat and also to chase the prey. And because of this, carnivores could only indulge themselves in their only safe space, which was the back alley market. With a demand, there comes a profit. And the most profitable way to have meat, of course, would be to kidnap people. And Lewis is just a result of all that. There was a demand, which was meat, and there was people willing to cash out on this demand, and Lewis was just a person caught up in the mess of things, pretty much. Him and Ray, I think that's a good name, the girl, that bunny, Ray, they all fell victim to what happens when you suppress a whole population from doing what they need to do naturally. So on the surface level, I think the relationship between Haru and Lewis is love and lust, but they both use this relationship to fill a void within themselves. For Lewis, there was a lack of real nurturing, maternal affection. And with Haru, she was just trying to fill this void of insecurity to finally be seen as an equal, even for a couple of minutes. And then you take a look at Legosi and Haru. On the surface level, it looks like a relationship between predator and prey. In chapter 3, when Legosi does pounce on Haru, trying to predate her, that sums up the relationship at that point, predator and prey. And coincidentally, Legosi had a similar thing going on as Lewis. He also never felt real maternal love. Legosi's mother, Lena, was so ashamed of her origins that she tried her hardest to run away from it. She was embarrassed to be seen with her father, which was Gosha, and she also pretended to be a full-blooded gray wolf throughout most of her childhood. Like so many of the other toxic things that this society breeds, it breeds a good deal of self-hate. Lena herself is said to have committed suicide because even though she was told by the world around her that she was very beautiful, she was also very popular in school because everybody thought she was beautiful, but her herself, she truly believed that what lied inside of her was filth, was ugly, and she killed herself because of that. She could not fathom, or she could not digest the fact that she came from very, very weird and unique origins. This self-hate manifested into low self-esteem, and she ends up sleeping with a random wolf and having Legosi, and she herself doesn't even remember who this person is. In other words, even though this society is really progressive, it has caused victims on both sides, carnivore and herbivore. And though Leno does regret this, it does not change how this has affected Legosi and how he had to live his whole life feeling that he was less than. Legosi had to live through his adolescence without the love of his mother, and he had this constant guilt of being who he was. He never knew exactly what he was because he was never told to love who he was. So he spent a lot of his time trying to hide his claws, hide his fangs, and he was never allowed to truly be himself. And of course, his society plays a role into this, but this forced him into being this very soft and timid wolf who had to get the animal inside of him ripped out in order to actually combat against any type of conflict. The sad truth is, this society has made everybody uncomfortable and also unsatisfied in being their true, natural self. Haru is a white snow hare who wants to be given the same respect as a carnivore. Lewis is living his whole life trying to prove that he's not prey. And Legosi is so ashamed of his natural instincts and intimidation factor that he tries to portray himself as prey. If each of these characters, Haru, Lewis, and Legosi, were to switch bodies with another species, I think Lewis would truly want to become a lion. Legosi would ironically want to become a sheep, or a pig, and Haru will become something that demands respect, either a grizzly bear like Riz, a lion, or a gray wolf like Legosi himself. Like I said before, all three of these people are very broken, so they take pieces out of themselves to fill in the holes in others. And I think the nature of Legosi and Haru's relationship runs even deeper than this, because he was placed in a world where he was never able to explore what he truly felt, so it turned some of these feelings for herbivores into something else. It became erotic because of the taboo surrounding the whole act of predation. He was placed in a world where he could never explore what he was truly feeling, so a craving for hunger sooner or later turned to this lustful craving for herbivores in general. He never was given the room to look through it himself, so he just started equating hunger to lust that later turned into love. Well, the whole series was a tale of how their relationship moved from predator and prey to straight love. You take a look at the third chapter actually, and how he pounces on her to predate her, and by the last chapter he pounces on Haru to accept her proposal. Very similar actions, but with two very, very different meanings. One out of hunger, the other one is very, very conscious love. Now I want to go back to this. Paru Itagaki describes Haru as being true to herself and honest to a fault. Because truthfully, what is innocence, and honestly, who cares? Because though hedonistic, these are limiters to a joyous life on borrowed time. But yeah, bruh, I fuck with Haru. Haru's my nigga, bruh. I fuck with Haru heavy. She's one of the realest niggas in the series, and I love her character so much. I remember going through this. This is one of my favorite series. I don't want to say of all time, but there's a lot of series that I call my favorite series of all time. So I'm going to throw that in that huge list of all my favorite series of all time. Beastars is great. Haru is a great character. Her dynamic with Legosi is what really made the series shine for me. And Legosi's character development is what really made the series shine. The back alley market was really cool to experience. The idea of morality in the series is really cool to read through. How Yafia or Yaya, the horse nigga, the Beastars, and how he morally justified using the carnivore bone infused compost to make himself stronger to combat them. It was cool just to see all of that. And the initial arc that pulled me into the story, the whole mystery of the death of the herbivore on campus and how that caused a rift in the small society or ecosystem on campus, and how that caused a rift in the neighboring city. And also how Riz was just this villain, and you have to feel sorry for him because he had to take pills just to limit his natural self. I'm about to make a video on Riz because he deserves his own video. I appreciate y'all niggas for watching. And if you know somebody who hasn't read Beastars or watched Beastars, tell them to watch the first season and then read the manga. Or just tell them to read the manga together because the manga is good, the art is good since day one. So yeah, man. I'll kiss you on the left cheek, slap you on the right. I'll see y'all when I see y'all, man.